The gymnasium was alive with the sound of clapping, the echo of cheers bouncing off the high ceilings. Rows of graduates in navy blue gowns beamed as their names were called, families shouting and waving phones to capture the moment. But when my name, Emily Carter, rang across the microphone, something chilling happened. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The applause died. My family, sitting right in the front row, didn't move a muscle. My mom leaned over to my sister Rachel, whispering something that made her smirk. My dad folded his arms, eyes sharp with disapproval. And when I looked toward them, hopeful, desperate for even a small nod of pride, they all turned their backs, literally twisting in their seats so they wouldn't face me. The crowd noticed. A murmur rippled through the room. My hands clenched around the diploma as heat burned my face. Every breath felt heavier. Everyone was cheering their kids, but for me, the sound was silence. And then Rachel's name was called. The same family who ignored me jumped to their feet, clapping, whistling, cheering like she had just cured a disease. My mom even cried. Dad shouted, "That's my girl!" Rachel tossed her hair back, flashing me a victorious grin before hugging them in front of the whole room, as if to prove I was the forgotten one. I sank lower into my seat, my chest tightening. My classmates shot me sympathetic looks. I forced my lips into a bitter smile, but inside, rage and shame churned like fire. The ceremony ended, families pouring onto the floor to hug their graduates. I stood alone in the corner, hugging my diploma to my chest like it was the only proof I had that I mattered. My parents never came to me. My sister, still in her cap, whispered as she passed, "Told you, you'll always be second best." Before I could react, I noticed a movement in the front. My grandfather, Henry Carter, who had sat quietly through it all, suddenly struggled to his feet. His cane rattled against the wooden floor. Everyone went silent, partly out of respect, partly out of curiosity. Grandpa rarely spoke in public. His health was fragile, his hands trembled, but his voice when it came was steady, cold even. He pulled a folded envelope from his coat pocket. "I wasn't planning to do this today," he said, eyes fixed on my parents. "But after what I witnessed in this room, I won't stay silent." The laughter and chatter died instantly. Even Rachel froze mid-smile. Grandpa cleared his throat, opening the paper with deliberate slowness. "This," he said, holding it high, "is my final will and testament." Gasps filled the air. My mother's smile cracked. My father stepped forward, his face draining of color. "Dad, not here, not today," my father hissed, trying to grab the paper. But Grandpa pulled it away sharply, his eyes like steel. "No, Daniel, today is the perfect day, because today I saw who my blood truly is, and who has none." The room stilled. My heart pounded in my chest so hard, I thought it would break through my gown. And when Grandpa began to read, the words he spoke made the entire hall freeze. Grandpa's voice, though raspy with age, carried across the gymnasium like a hammer striking steel. "I, Henry Carter, being of sound mind, declare this my last will and testament." The audience stirred, whispers rising, phones slipping discreetly out to record. Nobody expected this at a graduation. The atmosphere shifted from celebration to courtroom drama in seconds. My father, Daniel, stepped closer, his face darkening. "Dad, put that away right now. This isn't the place." Grandpa's gaze sharpened. "The place? This is exactly the place. Because today, Daniel, I saw you cheer for one child and humiliate the other. You clapped for Rachel, but turned your back on Emily as if she were nothing. And I'll be damned if I let this family rot in that kind of cruelty." Every word pierced me like glass. My throat tightened. The crowd's attention bore down on me. I could feel dozens of eyes burning into my skin, pitying, questioning. Rachel's smirk faltered. "Grandpa, please," she said, her voice sugar-sweet, the kind she always used when she wanted money. "You're embarrassing yourself. You know I've always been—" "Quiet!" Grandpa's cane slammed against the floor. The sound cracked like thunder. Rachel jumped. My mom's lips pinched tight, fury trembling beneath her carefully composed face. Grandpa unfolded the paper slowly, his hands trembling but his voice unwavering. "This document was drawn up months ago, and I had intended for it to be read privately. But after today, I see it should be public. The world should know where I stand. I couldn't breathe. My palms were slick with sweat. Was this really happening here, in front of hundreds of strangers? My humiliation moments ago now teetered on the edge of something darker, something irreversible. According to this will, Grandpa said, my entire estate, my businesses, properties, and accounts will be inherited not by Daniel Carter, nor by his wife, nor by Rachel Carter. They will go to Emily Carter. The words detonated in the room. A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd like wildfire. My knees nearly buckled. What? Rachel's voice cracked, her face draining of color. She stumbled forward. No, that's not true. You're lying. My mother rushed to Grandpa, fury twisting her elegant features. Henry, how dare you humiliate us like this? In front of everyone? Emily doesn't deserve it. She's done nothing with her life. Rachel is the one who worked hard, the one who... Grandpa's cane shot up, pointing directly at her. The one who's been handed everything, yes. The one who's never known a day of struggle because you and Daniel smothered her in privilege. And yet, when I watched today, I saw no humility, no grace, just arrogance. My father's face was crimson now, his jaw tight, eyes darting at the onlookers filming the spectacle. Dad, you're confused. You're sick. This isn't legal. This isn't valid. Emily doesn't know the first thing about responsibility. She's weak, soft, useless. Something inside me snapped. My voice cut through the air before I even realized I was speaking. Then why am I the one who had to survive without your help? Why am I the one who had to get 2 part-time jobs just to finish this degree, while you threw money at Rachel for her hobbies? The silence that followed was suffocating. My voice trembled, but it was steady enough for the crowd to hear. Dozens of phones caught my words. My classmates' parents, who once ignored me, were now staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. Rachel's eyes narrowed, venom dripping. You think one diploma makes you better than me? You think Grandpa's playing favorites will change the fact that everyone knows I'm the star? Grandpa's laugh was bitter, a sound that silenced her instantly. Star? My dear, you shine only because your parents held the spotlight for you. Emily lit her own fire in the dark. That's the difference. My father lunged forward, trying to snatch the will from Grandpa's hand. This is insanity. You can't just give everything to her. She's not capable. She'll ruin everything you built. Grandpa's cane cracked against the floor again, his frail body trembling with rage. And you, Daniel, will never forgive yourself for underestimating her. This will is signed, witnessed, and filed. Every lawyer in town has a copy. What I read today cannot be undone. A collective gasp swept the audience. My stomach twisted as reality hit me. This wasn't just some emotional declaration. This was binding, legal, real. Rachel's lips trembled, her perfect image crumbling. No, this isn't fair. I'm the oldest. I'm the one who's supposed to... Supposed to what? Grandpa's eyes bore into her. Inherit by default? You've lived entitled, ungrateful, cruel. You mocked your own sister on the proudest day of her life. And you, Daniel, allowed it. No, encouraged it. Tell me, why would I entrust my life's work to people who cannot even show basic decency to their own blood? The silence was broken only by the faint buzz of someone's phone recording live. I realized then this was going viral. Strangers everywhere would see my family's betrayal, my humiliation, and now this public reversal. My chest rose and fell in shaky breaths. I wanted to scream, to cry, to laugh all at once. My mother, meanwhile, was trembling with rage, her hands fisted at her sides. You'll regret this, Henry, she spat. You're destroying this family. Grandpa's voice softened, but it carried a weight that silenced her. Number, you destroyed this family when you decided love would be conditional, when you measured your children against each other like trophies instead of raising them as equals. I'm merely correcting the record. My father turned on me then, his eyes cold and sharp. You think you've won, Emily? You think this will make you happy? You'll never handle it. You'll fail, and when you do, we'll be there to watch. For a moment, his words stung. But then I looked at Grandpa, frail but standing for me when no one else had, and I felt a surge of strength. My voice steadied. Maybe I will fail, I said. Maybe I'll fall flat on my face, but at least I'll know it's mine. My effort, my struggle, my life, not handed down like a crown for being the favorite. The room erupted, not with applause, but with the buzzing energy of people stunned, whispering, recording. My father's face burned red. Rachel's tears streaked her makeup, and my mother clutched her purse like it was her last shield. Grandpa folded the paper back into his coat. "It's decided," he said firmly. "The world now knows the truth. Emily is my heir." The weight of those words crushed the room in silence. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. But deep inside, I also knew. This was only the beginning. The graduation ceremony ended, but the weight of what had happened clung to every corner of that gym like smoke after a fire. Students hugged their families, laughter filled the air, cameras flashed, but wherever I went, eyes followed me. Some looked at me with pity, others with awe, and many with curiosity. I was no longer just Emily Carter, the forgotten daughter. I was the girl whose grandfather had just shaken her entire family's foundation in front of hundreds of witnesses. As I walked outside, clutching my diploma with trembling hands, I saw my parents and Rachel huddled together near their SUV. Their expressions were twisted, raw with fury. My mother's lipstick smudged where she'd bitten her lip, Rachel's mascara streaked her face, and my father's jaw worked as if he were chewing broken glass. "Emily," he barked when he saw me. His voice wasn't just angry, it was venomous. "Get in the car, now." For a split second, I thought about running the other way, but my grandfather's frail figure appeared behind me, his hand gripping my shoulder. "Don't you dare," he muttered into my ear, his voice low but firm. "You walk with your head high. They've taken enough from you." I inhaled sharply, straightened my back, and walked past them. Rachel hissed under her breath, "This isn't over." Inside the house later that night, the storm exploded. My parents didn't wait to sit me down or talk calmly. As soon as the door shut, my father's voice thundered through the foyer. "What the hell did you pull today?" "Me?" I spun on him, my voice breaking with disbelief. "I didn't do anything. It was Grandpa." "Don't play innocent," my mother shrieked, throwing her purse onto the counter so hard it knocked over a vase. "You've poisoned him somehow. Manipulated him in his old age. You think we don't know how you've been sneaking around, trying to look like the victim while Rachel what?" I snapped. "While Rachel gets everything handed to her? While she mocks me at every chance she gets? I didn't ask for this, Mom. I didn't even know about it." Rachel stormed in, her face blotchy from crying, but her voice sharp as a knife. "You liar. You've always been jealous. And now you think you've won. But you won't last a month with what Grandpa's given you. You'll crumble. You'll beg us to take it back." I clenched my fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. At least if I crumble, it'll be because of my own mistakes, not because someone else cleaned up my mess. Rachel lunged at me, but my father caught her arm. He wasn't stopping her for my sake. He was saving her image. He turned his glare back on me. "You don't understand what you've done, Emily. It doesn't just give you money. It gives you power. Businesses, properties, accounts, responsibilities you can't even comprehend. You're going to ruin everything. And when you do, the Carters will be a laughingstock. Is that what you want? To destroy the family name?" Something inside me shifted at his words. For years, I'd begged for scraps of acknowledgement, prayed for him to see me as more than a mistake. But now, in his anger, he'd revealed the truth. It was never about love, never about me. It was about the Carter name, the legacy he cared more about than his own daughter. I laughed, but it was hollow, bitter. "The family name? You mean the one you buried years ago when you decided Rachel was worth loving and I wasn't?" My mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "How dare you speak to us like this?" "No," I said, my voice trembling but growing steadier with each word. "How dare you raise me like this? I graduated today, and instead of clapping for me, you turned your backs. Do you know what that felt like? Do you even care?" For the first time, silence fell. A silence so thick it almost hurt. My parents didn't answer. They didn't have to. Their silence was my answer. Grandpa's cane tapped the floor behind us. We all turned. He stood in the doorway, pale and weak, but his eyes burned with fire. "I've heard enough," he said coldly. "Daniel, Linda, Rachel, out." My father stiffened. "Dad, you can't. Out!" Grandpa barked, his voice shaking the walls. "You've done nothing but poison this house with arrogance and cruelty. If you can't even celebrate your own child's success, then you don't deserve to stand here. For a moment, I thought my father might strike him. His fists clenched, his face red, but then he grabbed Rachel's arm and yanked her toward the door. My mother followed, muttering curses under her breath. The slam of the door echoed through the house like a gunshot. Grandpa sank into a chair, his breath ragged. I rushed to him, tears stinging my eyes. Why did you do it like that? Why make it public? He looked up at me, his wrinkled hand trembling as he reached for mine. Because, Emily, they needed to be exposed. I've watched for years while they stripped you of dignity, while they pretended you were invisible. Today the world saw the truth. You deserve better. I shook my head, my chest aching. But now they'll hate me even more. They'll try to ruin me. Grandpa's eyes hardened. Let them try. You're stronger than you know. You've already survived their neglect. Surviving their schemes will be nothing compared to that. That night, lying in bed, sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' fury, Rachel's venom, the crowd's stares. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages. Classmates sending me clips, strangers tagging me on social media. The video was everywhere already. Comments poured in. The family literally turned their backs on her. Unbelievable. That grandpa is a legend. Rachel looked like she was about to explode, justice served. But mixed in were darker ones. Bet she manipulated the old man for money. Ente. This is going to get ugly. And I knew they were right. The Carter house wasn't quiet for long. By morning, my parents and Rachel would regroup. And when they did, they'd come for me, not with fists, but with schemes, with lies, with everything they could muster to take back what Grandpa had given me. For the first time, I wasn't just the forgotten daughter. I was the enemy. And the war had only just begun. Morning sunlight streamed through the blinds, but it felt cold against my skin. I hadn't slept. My phone buzzed again and again with missed calls, all from my father. When I finally picked up, his voice was ice. You've made a fool of us, Emily. You think that old man's will makes you powerful? We'll contest it. We'll drag you through court until you break. And when you're bankrupt, when you've got nothing, don't come crawling back. I hung up before he could say more. My hands shook, but not from fear, from rage. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. They weren't family. They were predators circling what they thought was theirs. By noon, the front page of the town's news site carried my picture, standing alone at graduation, holding my diploma with the headline, "Ignored by family, saved by grandfather's will." The video of Grandpa reading it had gone viral nationwide. Suddenly, everyone knew my name. That afternoon, I found my tsai, parents waiting outside Grandpa's house, faces twisted in fake politeness for the cameras now gathering nearby. Rachel, in designer clothes, spoke loudly enough for the reporters. We just want to help Emily transition into this responsibility. She's not ready. I stepped onto the porch, fury tightening my voice. Don't pretend to care. You didn't clap for me yesterday. You didn't hug me. You didn't even look at me. And now you want to act like protective parents? Everyone here saw the truth. Gasps rippled through the reporters. Cameras clicked. Rachel's face drained of color. Grandpa appeared beside me, gripping his cane like a weapon. Leave her, he growled. The world saw who you are. You can fight in court all you want, but every lawyer has my signature, every witness has my words. You can't erase what's already sealed. My father's mask cracked. He leaned forward, voice low but venomous. You'll regret this, Emily. You're not strong enough to fight us. For once, I didn't flinch. I met his eyes, steady and unblinking. I've been fighting you my whole life, and I'm still standing. The cameras caught it, my voice, my stance, the fire that had been buried for years. And in that moment, I knew the tide had turned, not just because of the will, but because the world now saw me, the daughter they tried to erase. My parents and Rachel retreated, their exit hounded by flashing cameras. The crowd wasn't clapping for them anymore. That night, Grandpa and I sat in silence on the porch. The air was cool, the chaos finally distant. He placed his hand on mine, frail but steady. They'll keep coming for you, he said, but you've already won. Not because of what I left you, but because you refused to bow when they turned their backs. Tears burned my eyes. What if I fail? He smiled faintly. Then fail with dignity. Fail knowing you stood up for yourself. That's more than they'll ever have. The stars glittered above us. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt unshakable. My family had tried to break me with silence, but in the end, their cruelty became the very stage where I rose, and they would never be able to turn their backs on me again. "You can sit down now, Claire." My mother's voice sliced through the tension like a hot knife. Her lips curled into that familiar cold smile, the one that always made my stomach knot as a kid. Everyone else was already seated around the gleaming mahogany table in the law office. My father tapped his gold watch impatiently while my brother Brandon smirked, arms stretched behind his head like he was lounging at a resort. "Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin." I was the last to arrive. No one had saved me a chair. "That's fine," I said tightly, pulling up one from the wall and sitting at the edge of the room like a stranger. The room smelled of leather, old money, and betrayal. Mr. Gentry, the family's longtime estate attorney, adjusted his glasses and opened the thick folder in front of him. "Thank you all for coming. This is the official will reading of the late Mr. George Langston, as per his final wishes. My grandfather, the only man in this family who'd ever shown me an ounce of respect." As Gentry began reading, it became obvious how the cards were stacked. My brother was listed first, then again, and again. The ranch in Montana, the vintage car collection, the Florida house, the trust fund, the investment portfolio. One by one, Brandon's name was repeated like some sacred chant, then silence, then my name. "To my granddaughter Claire, I leave." I held my breath. "My old photo albums and the books in my den." That was it. No land, no money, no explanation. Brandon let out a snort. "Wow, that's touching." My mother didn't even look my way. My father leaned back, satisfied. He always said Claire didn't have the stomach for family matters. She was never one of us. I should have crumbled. Years ago, I might have. Instead, I stood up slowly, tucked my chair back in, and looked at the lawyer. "I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Gentry," Brandon groaned. "Claire, just sit down. Don't start one of your little scenes." Mr. Gentry blinked. "Go ahead." I didn't speak. Instead, I looked over at my husband, Ethan, calm, composed. He reached into his blazer, pulled out a sleek leather wallet, and slid an ID across the polished surface of the table. It stopped in front of Mr. Gentry. The lawyer picked it up casually. Then he froze. His brows pulled together as he read the name on the badge. Then again, and again. The color drained from his face. My brother leaned over. "What is it? Some secret shopping club?" Ethan finally spoke, his voice measured and low. "Number, it's a federal identification. I work with the Department of Justice, Financial Crimes Division." The room went silent. My father's expression flickered. My mother's fingers twitched, slightly on her lap. "I have here a series of sealed documents and evidence," Ethan continued, tapping his briefcase gently, "relating to the financial misappropriation committed by Brandon Langston and, potentially, others in this room. Wire fraud, asset manipulation, misuse of elderly funds." I felt my heartbeat slow. I wasn't panicked. I'd known this moment was coming. I'd spent months preparing for it. The table, once filled with smug smiles, was now stiff with tension. "Is this some kind of joke?" my mother hissed. Ethan met her eyes directly. "You think it's a joke? Then I assume you're okay with us opening these files right here and now in front of everyone." Mr. Gentry swallowed hard. "Claire, why didn't you say anything before?" "Because," I said calmly, "I wanted to give everyone one final chance to show me who they really were." Brandon's jaw clenched. "You married a Fed?" "No," I said, stepping forward. "I married a man who actually respects justice, who understands worth isn't just measured in land and gold." "You set us up," my father whispered. "You little—" "No," Ethan interrupted. "She didn't. You did. Years ago. When you used Claire's name on those offshore accounts. When you made her a scapegoat for your tax filings. You thought she'd never figure it out, that she'd just keep quiet." Gentry slowly closed the will. "I think this meeting needs to be paused." "No," I said sharply. "We're not done." And as every eye turned back to me, I finally let go of everything I'd been holding in for years. "You always made me feel small," I said, voice steady but heavy with every scar they left behind. "You said I was too emotional, too soft, that I didn't have what it takes to be part of the Langston legacy. You made me believe I was nothing." My mother rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Claire, you're just bitter because we didn't coddle you. You didn't raise me. You dismissed me," I snapped, my voice rising. "You only ever saw me as a liability. And Grandpa? He saw through it all. He just didn't say it out loud, because even he knew how deep the rot in this family went." Brandon scoffed. "You're just upset because you didn't get the ranch. That's all this is. You were never into the business anyway. You were always off in your little books and college fantasies." "I didn't want the ranch," I said. "I wanted the truth, but you didn't just keep it from me. You used me." I turned to Gentry, who still hadn't said a word since Ethan revealed the ID. "Mr. Gentry, how long have you been handling the family finances?" He cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Close to 25 years. "And were you aware," Ethan jumped in, "that 3 years ago, Brandon filed several transactions under Claire's name? Large ones, offshore wire transfers, a Cayman account?" I didn't see those transactions," Gentry stammered. "Exactly," Ethan said, "because they were hidden. Your firm handled the will, not the active accounts, and her parents let it happen. They knew. They let Brandon do it, all while making Claire the legal fall guy." My mother's jaw tightened. "You can't prove any of this." "Yes, we can," Ethan said, sliding another folder across the table. "These are authenticated records, and they're already with the DOJ's white-collar division. Today's just a courtesy. We came here to give you a chance to explain yourselves before the arrests begin." There was a long silence. You could hear the tension crawling up the walls. "I never signed anything," I said, looking directly at my father, "but my name is on those documents. My social security number, my forged signature. You said I was a disappointment, but I was just your scapegoat." Brandon slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous. Claire, you've always been jealous of me. You hated that I was chosen, that I was the one Dad trusted." "No, I hated that you used me, that you smiled in my face while stealing my name and my future." I looked at my father, then my mother. "And you let him. You were so quick to push me out of everything. The family events, the business meetings, even Grandpa's hospital room. I had to find out he died through a neighbor. You didn't even call." My father finally spoke, voice low and shaking. "You were never meant to be part of this. You were always different, sensitive, weak." I stepped forward slowly, planting my hands firmly on the table. "Number, I wasn't weak. I was honest. I was kind. And you mistook my silence for stupidity. That's where you messed up." Gentry tried to interject, clearly desperate to regain control. "Maybe we should reconvene at a later date." "No," Ethan said, calmly but firmly. "Now is the time." He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. A recorded voice came through the speaker. "Brandon Langston authorized the transfer under Claire's name. I asked if she had signed the consent form and he told me not to worry about it." It was a banker's voice, dated, time-stamped. "I have more," Ethan said, pocketing the phone. "Enough to open a federal investigation. Enough to get search warrants." Brandon looked pale now. My mother had stopped blinking. "I just wanted to be free from this mess," I said quietly. "From a family that only values money, control, and appearances. I married Ethan, not because he's a federal agent, but because he's the only person who ever made me feel safe. He believed me when I told him something felt off. He helped me uncover the truth, piece by piece." I looked back at Gentry. "I don't care about the will. Keep the photo albums, keep the books, but I want the legal right to clear my name. I want everything Brandon stole under my name reversed. I want the truth on record." "And if they don't cooperate," Ethan said, "charges will be filed, multiple, across jurisdictions. The only thing saving any of you right now is this conversation happening before the warrants are signed." My father stood. We need time." "You had years," I said, locking eyes with him. "You just never thought I'd fight back." Mr. Gentry cleared his throat and carefully slid the badge back to Ethan. "This will change everything." "Yes," Ethan said. "It already has." Brandon leaned forward, sweat glistening on his forehead. "You wouldn't really press charges, Claire. Come on, we're family." "No," I said, cold and clear. We're blood. That's not the same thing. I turned and walked toward the door, Ethan following. But just before we stepped out, I paused and looked back over my shoulder. One last thing, I said. You all laughed when I stood up. You mocked me for showing up at all. But you should have known. I only stand when I have something to say. And I came here today with proof, power, and purpose. Enjoy your inheritance. You'll be needing lawyers soon. And with that, I walked out, head held high. For the first time, they were the ones left speechless. The heavy door shut behind us with a loud click, but the silence from inside still echoed in my ears. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt powerful. Ethan placed a gentle hand on my lower back as we walked down the corridor of the law firm. You okay? I stopped in the middle of the hallway and exhaled deeply, my hands shaking. I didn't think I'd feel this empty. You were holding that in for a long time, he said. Anyone would. I turned to face him. Do you think they'll fight back? Try to twist it? Oh, absolutely. Your parents didn't build their reputation on honesty. And Brandon? Ethan gave a bitter chuckle. He'll squirm like hell. That's what scared me. People like my brother don't accept defeat. They destroy whoever tries to expose them. And I had just lit a match inside a room filled with gasoline. By the time we reached the parking lot, my phone was already blowing up. First came a message from my father. Let's talk, privately. Then my mother. You've embarrassed us enough. Come to the house before this gets worse. And then, Brandon. What the hell did you do? I'm not going down for this. Fix it, Claire. I didn't reply. Ethan took the phone from me, turned it off, and slid it into the glove box. You don't owe them a single second more of your peace. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But part of me still ached. Not for their approval, I had buried that craving years ago, but for the loss of what could have been, what family was supposed to be. Later that night, Ethan and I sat in our small kitchen, drinking lukewarm coffee, trying to pretend this was just another evening, but it wasn't. The storm had only just begun. I spoke to my supervisor, Ethan said, scanning his laptop screen. They're moving fast. The DOJ has already flagged Brandon's offshore accounts. They're going to freeze them within 48 hours. And my name? I asked. Already being cleared. You'll be removed as a signer on everything within the week. Your credit will be restored, and the IRS will be notified that those past anomalies weren't your doing. It felt surreal. For years, I'd been denied loans, flagged for inconsistencies, denied credit cards, all because my brother had built a paper trail under my name, and I hadn't even known. I thought it was just bad luck or incompetence, but it was betrayal. Ethan closed the laptop and looked at me. They'll try to spin this. Your parents will say it was all a misunderstanding, that Brandon was young, reckless. They've always protected him, I muttered. Even when he cheated in school, or crashed Dad's car, or failed out of business college, they just cleaned it up and blamed someone else. You, I nodded. Always me. Ethan leaned forward. You don't need their apology. You already have the truth. Now you get your name back, your future back. But what if that's not enough? I whispered. He tilted his head. Then we go all the way. We don't stop until the people who hurt you answer for it. The next morning, the media had already picked up the story. Not the full version, just the beginning of the unraveling. Langston Eyre, accused of financial fraud, federal investigation. Underway, I stared at the headline on my phone, coffee in hand, pulse steady. For the first time, he was the one under the microscope. And yet, I wasn't ready for what came next. Around 11:17 a.m., the doorbell rang. Ethan was on a work call, so I answered it. And there they were, my parents, standing on my porch like ghosts from a life I no longer claimed. My mother wore her pearls and blazer like armor. My father's hands were stuffed in his pockets, but his eyes darted with unease. I didn't invite them in. We just want to talk, my mother said. Then talk, right here. My father cleared his throat. What you did yesterday was calculated, cold, no colder than what you did to me, I replied. You've embarrassed this family, my mother snapped. Do you even understand what this will do to our name? Oh, I'm sorry, I said with mock concern. Did exposing the truth inconvenience your reputation? We raised you, my father said, voice strained. We gave you everything. You gave me silence, I shot back. You gave Brandon everything. The cars, the business, the protection. I got the leftover scraps of attention and a stack of forged documents that nearly ruined my life. My mother's face twisted. He was going through a rough time. He made a mistake. That mistake could have landed me in prison. Then let's fix this together, my father said quickly. Just stop the investigation. Tell Ethan to stand down. My stomach turned. You want me to protect him? We're your family, he said. You protect your own. I stared at them both. You didn't protect me. The door behind me opened, and Ethan stepped out, folding his arms. She's not going to drop anything, he said. And if you think intimidation or guilt is going to work, you clearly don't know her anymore. My father glared. Is this all part of your little plan? Marry into law enforcement and take us down? Ethan stepped closer. Number. But maybe if you hadn't tried to steal your daughter's life and identity, you wouldn't be standing here begging for mercy. My mother's voice cracked. Please, he'll go to prison? I looked at her, eyes hard. And I almost did. Alone, while you all laughed. So if prison's where he ends up, maybe that's justice. Without another word, I closed the door. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't second guess it. I just stood there, breathing, feeling every ounce of the weight they'd piled on me all these years fall away. One truth at a time. 3 weeks later, the headlines were everywhere. Langston financial empire crumbles after federal probe, arrests imminent, insider tip led to uncovering of fraud ring within prominent business, family. Brother frames sister to hide $4.6 million in illegal transfers. Every time I saw Brandon's mugshot on the news, my hands didn't shake. Not like they used to. I didn't feel pity. I didn't even feel joy. I just felt clean, like I'd finally washed off years of invisible dirt. And yet, the victory didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like release. He had been indicted on 6 counts of financial fraud and identity manipulation, with another 2 pending from across state lines. My parents were still being investigated as accessories. And Mr. Gentry? He'd been slapped with a formal ethics complaint for gross negligence. But they weren't what lingered in my mind. What lingered was the fact that none of them, not even once, had apologized. Not to me. Not for using my name. Not for setting me up. Instead, they issued cold statements to the press. Legal language, denials, excuses. All while their empire burned. The house was quiet that morning, sunlight slanting through the kitchen window as I flipped pancakes on the stove. Ethan was across the table reading case updates on his laptop, and for a moment, everything felt normal, safe. I've been thinking, I said. Ethan looked up. Dangerous words. I smiled faintly. I want to change my name. His brows lifted. Claire Langston is no more? She never really existed, I said. She was a placeholder, a version of me designed to survive that house. Ethan reached across the table, taking my hand. Then, who are you now? I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I was no longer the girl who flinched at every family gathering, who avoided mirrors because she couldn't recognize her own strength, who let herself be erased by people who were supposed to love her. I want to start over. Completely, I said. New name, new direction. Maybe start that non-profit I always talked about. The one for financial abuse survivors. Ethan nodded. You'd be amazing at that. You think so? I know so. He squeezed my hand. And for once, I believed him without needing to second-guess myself. Later that week, the final hearing took place. Brandon was denied bail. The judge's words were sharp and final. You not only defrauded your own sister, but you weaponized her identity while she struggled to build a life independent of your family's control. That, Mr. Langston, is a crime of cruelty. My parents sat on the other side of the courtroom, stone-faced. I didn't look at them. I wasn't there for them. I was there for me, for every loan I was denied, for every time I was called a failure, for every family dinner where my opinions were met with silence while Brandon was toasted like royalty. When the court adjourned, I walked out alone. No cameras, no speeches. Just me, the sky, and air that felt freer than anything I'd ever breathed in my life. 2 months passed. I moved cities. Ethan transferred to a field office closer to our new place, a modest little home with overgrown ivy on the porch and creaky floorboards we promised never to fix. I set up a desk near the sunroom, where I wrote proposals for the foundation I was building, clear name project, a resource center for victims of family-based fraud. I received dozens of emails weekly, stories from women and men just like me, people silenced, people gaslighted, people buried under the reputations of the families they were born into. Each time I read their messages, I felt purpose threading itself back into my bones. One day, I received a handwritten letter in the mail from Gentry. He didn't ask for forgiveness, but he told me that my grandfather had left an unfiled addendum to the will, a document tucked away in a drawer he forgot to submit, one that had bequeathed me a property, a small lake house in Vermont, something my grandfather had meant just for me. I stared at the letter for a long time, and then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because, even after everything, even after all the lies, they couldn't destroy what my grandfather saw in me. Ethan found me sitting on the couch with the letter. "What is it?" I handed it to him. He read it and looked up. "You want to visit?" "No," I said, smiling. "I want to go there, to live. For a while, just us, just peace." 6 months later, we moved into the lake house. It wasn't grand. It needed fixing. The walls needed painting. The roof needed replacing. But it was ours. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove myself to anyone. I walked barefoot on the old wooden dock at dusk, watching the reflection of the sky ripple in the water, and I whispered, I made it. Not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. Because I'd stood up in a room full of people who tried to erase me and said, not this time. And when the world tried to push me down again, I had someone beside me who didn't just catch me. He handed me the sword to fight back. No, this story wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation, about finally taking back the life they tried to steal, and rewriting every line they once forced into my script.